Psychiatry handles both neurology, which is the study of the brain, basically, and as well as mental health, which they're very interconnected. And a psychiatrist is a medical doctor, so they have the ability to prescribe medication in addition to psychotherapy. So that's how they differ from a psychologist or a therapist. They do have the ability to prescribe medications, but they also can do therapy and things like that.
Do you think our society fully embraces mental health therapy?
No.
Why do you think that is?
There's a big stigma with mental health. Mental health is somewhat synonymous with being crazy. I personally feel like we all have a level of mental illness, if you will, right? I feel like we all deal with depression, we all deal with anxiety, and I think that's a kind of like a normal phenomenon. It's just a matter of if it starts to interfere with your functioning in your day-to-day living, when you start to say that it's a disorder. And I feel like there's so many stresses and so many things that go on in society, so much change that goes on in society, and a lot of us don't do well with change, but change is the most consistent thing about life. So we need to learn how to deal with change. And, I feel like the way that mental health has been portrayed, I mean, even if you look at the history of people who had, mental health issues or were crazy, the way that they were treated, they were put in institutions, they were given these very barbaric, unethical treatments to try to rid them of these demons or whatever it is that was causing them to act crazy. And I think that kind of was passed down through generation, and generation. And I think a lot of times in society, when we don't understand something or something is different to us, then we see it as bad or wrong, or it scares us. And so that's where the stigma comes in. And so people don't want to be seen as different from normal society. So they may suppress anything that they're going through it or may not address it. And I know culturally as well, in certain communities, I know in the African American community, but as I have, which I'll talk about later, but as I've learned about other cultures, there's a lot of different cultures that don't really understand mental health. And if there's someone who's like your crazy Uncle Joe or whatever, they'll, leave them alone, and they just kind of shun them and don't really try to understand like what is at the root of what's going on. So I think the more that we talk about mental health issues, and I think mental health is being talked about more now as more athletes and entertainers, celebrities are talking about their struggles with mental health. I hope that it's not just a fad. I have a feeling that it is kind of a fad, and that once that dies down, then people will still have this, the stigma will still be there and people won't want to address it. But I think now that it's the in thing to talk about, I think we should capitalize on that.
Okay. In what ways can therapy help someone?
Well, first, I think we need to think about, like, what is therapy, right? I think when we look at therapy, I know when I talk to a lot of people, they say, I can't stand therapy. I don't like therapy. Therapy doesn't help, right? And I said, so my first question is, what is your idea of what therapy is? What has been your experience with therapy? Because people have different experiences when it comes to therapy. And it could be like, I sit on this couch and I just talk, and the person just writes something down. They don't really give me a lot of feedback. It's one-sided. I don't know anything about this person. And my approach to therapy is very different. It's probably not the conventional approach, but I think that someone is opening their most vulnerable part of themselves that many other people or no other people, even including themselves, have not touched. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to be in that space where they are opening themselves up, I think that it's only fair that you give them a little bit of who you are as well. And I think that's how I am able to connect because I'm authentic. I've dealt and deal with mental health issues myself, depression and anxiety specifically. And so just giving a little bit of myself, but not giving too much because it's not about me, it is about the other person, but just trying to relate, with the person. It's a way for you to not have someone fix your life, but to together figure out how to manage whatever it is, the stressors that are going on in your life. And I also find that when someone goes into therapy, there may be people that tell them like this is what you need to work on, but then as you go through therapy you find that, hey, that might not be the most stressful thing in their life. That might be what was in the referral, but you get to know them and you talk to them and you're like, oh, there's so many other things that we could be addressing. This may not even be the major thing. It's something, but so I think really just allowing the person that you're working with to lead, if they are in a space where they can, to lead the session, as opposed to you coming in there and just thinking what they need to work on and just telling them, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to work on, because it may not be helpful for them. I also feel that you don't have to be a therapist to be therapeutic for someone, in someone's life as well.
Okay. So what role do you think the community plays, or a strong support system? What role does that play in the person's life?
I think it plays a major role. I think we live in a society right now where there's a lot of division, and many times people can feel alone, and if they're dealing with something that there's already a stigma associated with it, and they don't have that support, then it may get to the point where they're like, well, what's the point of going on, because nobody really understands me. So I feel like, and they're not going to be quick to go to a professional, because that may be something that in their experience there's distrust, there is people who have talked about that. They may not have the resources, they may not know about mental health professionals, they may not know where to go, especially when it comes to kids. Like a lot of times they're dependent upon their support system and their families and stuff. So if they don't have anybody to lead and guide them, then they're kind of lost. So I think it's very important, and it takes a village. I also feel like a family is not just the person that gave birth to you. A family could be the community, and so many times people look to the community to kind of lead and guide them. So I feel like they could be a major factor in their healing, in their treatment. And again, even if they are being the therapeutic person in their life, it doesn't necessarily have to be in an office, sitting on a couch and talking. Lots of times coaches, pastors, teachers, a lot of people out there in the community. Could be the person at the convenience store that you go to every day after school. There's so many people that could be therapeutic in your life, and you don't have to have a certain letter behind your name or certain amount of education to be able to be healing and therapeutic for someone.
What role do you think faith plays in a person's healing journey?
Oh, I think faith plays a major role, and I don't think it necessarily has to be attached to a certain religion. But to me, faith is what gets you through. When it seems that all is lost, or that you're alone, or that nobody really understands, and those tangible things, right, are kind of taken away from you, and you've attached your happiness to those tangible things, and you just kind of feel like you're in a dark place. It's that faith that keeps you going. It's that faith that opens up your eyes and wakes you up in the morning. It's that faith that tells you, you know what, it's not going well right now, but keep moving forward, and things could get better. It's that faith that shows you that it's okay to not be okay, and to reach out and lean on that faith to be able to maintain. And I also feel like we live in a society where we feel like we have to do everything on our own, right? to ask for help is a sign of weakness. But that's when you pull from that faith, because you can't do it all on your own. And again, it's okay to not be okay. So I think that faith plays a major role.